Hey there, folks. Today I want to talk to you about when pseudo leaders lack the depth to actually get the job done. And does that sound like a lot? Yeah, because it is a lot and there's a lot buried in there. So there's a little shade in there with a whole lot of truth. And we're gonna dig deep. And as you know, there's always something that comes up in the world around us and that's going on, and every day there's something going on with politics or leadership related things that just I'm like, really and so the last and most recent, well, no, not last and most recent, but recent leadership issue that caused me to go, oh really, is this whole mayor's race in Los Angeles, and how there was this three-way race that was going on. And even though they don't run on party politics, it was very clear that two of the candidates were Democrats and one was leaning Republican, and two of them had experience, one being the sitting mayor, the other being a city council person, and the third being an actor, a reality TV actor, who unfortunately did have his house to burn down in those horrible fires from a year or so ago. It seems like so much longer, but it's only been like a year and a half ago, which is highly unfortunate. And people get motivated to take action and get involved civically when crisis happens, when horrible things happen. Absolutely. Have thrown no shade at that. That is how so many people have gotten involved in civic leadership down through the years. No shade at that. However, the city of Los Angeles is a city of over 4 million people. It is the size of some states. There are countries with fewer people and population in this city. So this is a huge undertaking for anyone, and having some type of experience or showing that you've leaned in some way to earn people's trust is really, really important. So here we are, this whole conversation going on about, about who's going to be the next mayor. And the way they run their elections is the top, if one person does not get the 50%, then the top two go to a runoff. That happens all around the country all the time, right? With the distinction being, I forget what they call it, but there's a certain way, because they do this in California, which is just crazy to me, but it's not along party lines. So it's not like, okay, the top vote getter in the Democratic Party gets it, or top vote getter in the Republican Party. It's the top two vote getters are who gets to move along. Absolutely insane to me. But okay, they've been doing this a minute, so let's go with that. So we roll on through, and this third person, I should say, who is the reality TV actor who lost his home, has been running on a platform basically of criticizing how the city government handled or mishandled the fires. Get it? Legit concern. Apparently, from what I've read, that's been, there were some things that weren't responded to in a timely manner, like all kinds of things. Like, there were issues. And his solution for eradicating homelessness is to collect his wealthy friends to go build a space for them to go to. I'm not making this up. And then I feel like there was maybe one other thing. No other issues that I had learned that came to the forefront of why this person should take over the leadership and the governance of a city with a population of 4 million and being the second largest city in the United States. Now, I'm reading this, and any of you who know my background in politics, lobbying, all of the things, the legal world, like I'm reading this, shaking my head, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. So as we move along, it comes down to the fact that the vote takes longer because there's so many mail-in ballots to actually get counted. And while the reality TV star initially was looking like they were in second place, after all of the votes are counted, it turns out that the city council person is in second place. No one has 50%. So the sitting mayor and the city council person are who are going to go to the runoff for November. And the third candidate just loses it, and apparently had said at some point that if he did not become mayor of Los Angeles, he was leaving not just the city, but I think the state. So much for commitment to the cause, right? So all of that just had me shaking my head to begin with. And then getting to this issue of, quote, pseudo leaders, fake ones, people who say they care about the issue, but their actions and the depth or the lack thereof show something completely different. For me, it's a red flag for someone to say, well, if I don't win, I'm leaving. Because that's very like children on the playground. Well, I need to win, or I need to do, or I'm leaving, I'm taking my ball with me. You know, I'm like, so let's talk about the childishness of it all. And recognizing that in a city of this size that has historically leaned more liberal, more democratic, it was already going to be quite the feat for someone who was not leaning that way to come out on top, right? And so there's lots of questions about all of this thing, but let's get to the leadership question of it. So one of my daily addictions is watching the Don Lemon show. He's very informative. He does his research, but it also can be very comical at times, because sometimes what's going on around us is a bit comical, and we just have to go with that flow. But he's talking about this whole issue, this whole situation, and there were two phrases that he gave, that he made, that just totally, I was like, yes, 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 and I want to talk about this. The first phrase was that it appeared that candidate number 3 was confusing fame with leadership. And I'm like, yes, because just because you're famous does not make you a good leader. And hello, we see that in our politics in a much larger frame nationally, and what's been going on. But being famous does not make you a good leader. Just because a bunch of people know you because from being an actor or from whatever, it doesn't matter. Being a sports legend, all of that does not automatically translate to strong leadership skills, okay? The second phrase that really stuck with me was saying, knowing how to get attention is not the same as knowing how to govern. I was done. I'm like, that is quotable. I'm gonna need to write that on something. Think about that. Knowing how to get attention, be famous, is not the same as knowing how to govern, be a leader. How true is that? How many times in our day-to-day lives, in our own communities, in our own workspaces, do we see people who know how to say the right thing, be with the right people, do the right things, but there's no depth there. And, let's dig a little bit into that. First of all, I have served on over 25 nonprofit boards, professional boards, whatever, a lot of boards in my lifetime since I was 20 years old. So I think I have a little bit of knowledge about what good governance looks like, what good leaders look like, having seen it, having been in it, having to acknowledge my own faults as a leader and to do something about it. All of those things, right? We're talking about decades of experience and observations. And my first one is, thinking about executive leaders who know how to make things look good on the surface. Let's talk about those things. These are the folks who, again, attend all the right events, go to the galas, go to the happy hours, attend the receptions, attend the fundraisers, like they go schmooze, go interact and know all the right people, okay? Am I knocking any of that? No, been there, done that. Like that is truly a part of the process when you're looking to build your career, build a business. Like you do have to be more visible. So I'm not knocking that. It is very important for you to be more visible, to be open to meeting more people, to attending different events. You don't have to kill yourself doing it, but that's a different video, right? That's a different conversation. And probably I've talked about it in one of my coffee chats if you go check the library. These are the people that know how to say the right things. I have worked with these folks. I've served with these people. But if you go any deeper, you're gonna find cracks in that facade. There's gonna be rocks beneath that topsoil. It's not gonna be there. Those roots are not gonna go deep, right? And here's why. What they can't do. For example, perhaps they can't explain the financial anomaly that's showing up in the financial statements. Perhaps they can't answer a challenging question honestly. Honestly, you can answer a question, but are you being honest about it? And a lot of times the lack of honesty is because when you don't know the answer, you're trying to talk around it. You're trying to fake your way through it because there's no substance there. You honestly don't know. And instead of saying, that is a good question, let me go research, let me go find out, they try to muddle through instead and fake it. Not a good look. They have a thin skin when problems arise and questions increase. Thin skin, not thick. Because the more questions you get asked that you can't answer, especially if there's a problem that needs to be solved, these pseudo leaders, they don't take well to being asked those questions. They instead turn it into a personal attack and question you or question the questioner for daring to ask the question. Did that sound circular? Absolutely. And we have all experienced it. They distract, they take things and go down a whole different rabbit hole. But what they don't do is answer the question. They don't offer a solution to the problem because, first of all, they probably don't really even understand the depth of the problem that was brought up. And they're just very thin-skinned. I've seen it time and time again. And it would seem like, well, gosh, can that be a little bit different this time? And the answer is no. The answer is no. Right? So here's the thing. One other thing that they can't do. They cannot sustain relationships that are best for the long-term growth. Because again, that requires some depth, that probably requires some vulnerability, that requires being authentic in some way. And again, as I always say, authenticity doesn't mean laying all your business out in the street, but it does mean coming across as a real person, someone who has maybe an ounce of empathy, can recognize a situation and how other people might approach it differently than themselves, and then be able to work through that and talk through that. But in order to do that, you also have to have some relationships in place that allow you to have someone to bounce ideas off of, or to go ask a question, or to go present it. I'm like, hey, this happened. What do you think about this? They don't have that. They're not seeking that, because that would mean owning up to there being a legit problem that you don't necessarily understand. And pseudo leaders aren't trying to do that. They're trying to be surface level, trying to maximize what they can get from a situation rather than dig deep and figure out how they can give, how they can help sustain the organization, the group, the city government, other than just figuring out what you can get out of it, which might be, the solutions as you see them, not as a collective, and being able to work together towards something, right? So it's one of those situations where literally you could just take this and flip it on its head, and let's talk about what leaders of depth are able to do, right? Build relationships that are sustainable, that you can dip into over time, that you can go back to and get input, seek advice and counsel from. Super, super valuable skill. Not just having a network of people so you can say you know them, but having a network of people that you can dig into, that you can reach out to help you solve problems, to help you work through a tough space. Someone who can be an accountability partner, who can be hold you accountable for results. Okay? Also being able to acknowledge when a problem has arisen, and that I don't have all the answers, but we're going to figure it out together. Right? Leaders, real leaders, acknowledge that they still have growth to do. There's still moments of growth for them. You can be a strong leader and still need to grow in some areas. Those things are not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, you want them to be true. Because if you have a leader who thinks that they know everything and there's no room for growth for them, you got a problem. Like, that is a red flag. So it's important for your leaders to be able to acknowledge when problems arise and know that, hey, we need to dig in a little bit. We need to pull some people together. We need to have some conversations. And, I may have to take a couple of hits and take some criticism in order to get to the root of the problem, but I'm willing to do that. It's not easy. That's another thing, because ego will take you out in a hot minute. Seen it happen. Seen it happen on a personal front, on a professional front. I've seen it happen all around. And it's a tough thing. And good leaders who care can work through it. Right? And, sometimes it's not all about making everything look good on the surface. Now, I know when you're in politics, people are like, oh, it's always about that. No, not really. Because some things just aren't good. High crime rates are not good. Poor infrastructure is not good. But if you can say, hey, we have the resources, or we have the right people in place to help build forward, to address some of those things, that is a good thing. Right? So there are good things that can come out of tough situations, but you have to first acknowledge that there's a tough situation that needs to be fixed. And then be willing to dig in about finding the solutions to it. This is leadership 101. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to run a city government, a nonprofit board, or your team at the office. Leadership 101 is about building solid relationships, being open to being held accountable, which may mean that you have to, take some criticisms along the way, and being able to dig into problems and finding good solutions that benefit everyone, not just yourself, not just to make you look good. Right? So much more that could be said about that. But that's where I wanted to just kind of run with that lovely little story. And I'll be keeping an eye out on this, on the outcome of this mayor's race in Los Angeles, because, I went to law school there. I have friends and family folks out there. So I'm still interested. But I'm going to ask you, where are you in your leadership journey? Are there a few things here that kind of hit home and made you twinge a little bit? And here's the thing, that's okay. What I'm going to recommend is that you having that moment, reflecting on it, and then saying, where can I grow? Where do I need to grow? And then the next step, what are you going to do about it? All right? That's all. Until the next video, take care.